The costs of living off-grid. Part 3, water. Big topic. I am sitting here with one of my many 1,000-liter tanks, and you can use these 1,000-liter tanks for virtually anything. Rainwater, graywater, borehole water, ocean water, river water. But there's no two ways about it. You're going to want to have a lot of water when you're living off grid. So to figure out the costs that it's going to cost for you, you need to do some basic research of how much water you use per day, and maybe do a introductory course on water conservation or Graywater 101. Both courses we teach here, and you can get certified from Love Farm Stay in that regard. But for example, I'm getting 3,000 liters of borehole water delivered for 50 euros, like a penny a liter. You could break that down even further, and I can get it cheaper for 30 euros. This is for water that you could shower in or do dishes with. I wouldn't recommend to drink it. As far as drinking water goes, as you know, you can go buy bottled water if that's what you're interested in, if you have a particular brand that you like. But the cost of water would differentiate depending on where you are, which is why in part 2 I was speaking about part 2 and part 1. I think I mentioned location is everything. You should try to find an area, if you're living off grid, that has some water running through it, because it'll be an invaluable resource, even just for flushing the toilet. So the human body, if you were to divide it into fluids and solids, it has about 40 liters, between 40 and 50, depending on your size, but about, just say 40 liters of fluid in it. All things considered, the average human uses roughly 40 liters of water in a day. You might ask, how are you getting these calculations, Adam? Well, I know that every time you flush a toilet, it's between 5 and 10 liters of water, depending on your adjustments, which is why I've said in previous videos, not in this series, but if you can dial down your water adjustments in the back of your toilet to do the minimum and see how that affects your flushes. Like, if the whole goal of flushing a toilet is to get the waste into the septic tank or into the sewage system. So if you can get by with having it adjusted to the bare minimum, then that's maybe 5 liters per flush. How many times a day do you flush the toilet? You can see how it adds up. So when I say 40 liters a day, not only does the human body contain about 40 liters of fluid, but you're actually using 40 liters of water in a given day. Say you have a shower that's a reasonable time, could be 20 liters of water. They sell 10-liter off-grid bags that you can hang up over your head, put 10 liters in it and have a really quick shower, but that's turning it off while you're soaping up, turning it back on to rinse off. So 10 liters is a little bit pushing it, I would say, for most people. 20 liters is you're comfortable, you have some hair, you want to wash it, do conditioner. Let's just say 20 liters. Right off the top is for showering, if you shower every day. And then the flushes, depending on how many times you go to the bathroom. And then the rest is for eating and drinking. So when I say 40 liters you're consuming every day, just one person, you can see that I'm not wrong. I've thought about it a little bit. So when you're talking about water delivery, and you have 3,000 liters, in my example, being delivered for 50 euros, you could get by with a family of 4 getting water delivery roughly once a month if you're harvesting graywater and rainwater. If you have a farm like I have about an acre of farmland, and I'm using roughly about 100 liters of fluid a day to water it. The reason I say fluid is because I'm using graywater and a combination of rainwater and graywater. Behind me, this is borehole water. In front of me where I'm sitting, I have this similar tank. I'm sitting in the gap between them. I have a very similar tank in the front, and it's full with rainwater. So rainwater is harvested just from the eave straw from a tube. There's different ways to harvest rainwater. Venice does it in their own way. Many people in the world harvest rainwater. But if you're looking to offset your borehole use or your main source, then anything helps, right? In this 40 liter a day scenario, 4 people, you can do the math. Just for outside of our farm, you're at 160 liters a day, or if you want to round up, you can say Adam and his family of 4 are using 200 liters a day, which we don't use, but just say 200 liters a day, which can add up. So this is a 1,000 liter tank. You can do the math on that. Obviously, we would be out in a week or 5-6 days of usage. What I'm saying is we don't use that, and we don't all flush like crazy. Some of us use the bathroom outside. The people who can stand up will pee outside. But yeah, and some of us don't shower every day. So this is just something to think about when you're thinking about water costs. I would get into, if I was you, looking into desalination, getting a distiller. I've mentioned before in other videos. You can go online and type in the infamous water quality article, and then my name, Adam Josh, and you'll see I've written an exhaustive article on water quality in the past. I was, before I retired, I was a technician, and one of my fields was dealing with water quality and being working hand in hand with people from all different backgrounds of water quality and even like regional waterworks outfits. I've worked in them, around them, with them, this type of thing. So yeah, I know a little bit about water quality. I know a little bit about what is in the water. You could get yourself a TDS meter, a total dissolved solids meter, and then educate yourself on what is too hard, what is too soft. What does soft water mean? What does hard water mean? What kind of chemicals do you want in your water? What kind of chemicals do you not want in your water? Are all boreholes created equal? Are all wells created equal? Well, if the well is poisoned, no. And if the well is near an oil drilling site or a contaminated soil site, then no. If the well or borehole is being polluted by ocean water close by, then you'd be drinking salt water. So sometimes when the borehole runs dry, it gets refilled by ocean water. These are all things that nobody really tells you, but are common sense if you think about it. But I'd rather you not find out the hard way. So in a worst case scenario, as far as water goes, you can take the ocean and desalinate it in a mega home water filtration system or a VVOR water filtration system. Israel does it, Dubai does it, Japan does it. There are many places in the world, including like Iraq, that desalinate water or distill water. You can make a distilling unit. You can find my YouTube videos where I've made homemade distillation rigs. You can do that yourself. I own a VVOR here. Up until now, I've used it once. It's not really necessary. I had a pipe dream to make salt and sell it from Love Farmstay, and my energy costs for running it are a little bit more than I'm prepared for right now. I can do it, but it would be like a once a week thing. Keep in mind that I'm a family of 4. I'm not just one guy doing my off-grid porn fantasies out here. So I have 4 people to consider, myself included, when I think about like running a distiller just for the fun of it. But yeah, I could distill the water behind me and I would confidently drink it. I could distill the rainwater in front of me and I would confidently drink it, because the only thing that comes out is pure 0 parts per million total dissolved solids water, or scientific grade science lab water, where you could drink it. It mixes with the solids in your stomach like food, and you're hydrating yourself in that fashion and drinking the purest of pure waters. Some people would argue that like flowing river water would be better. To each their own. I'm not saying that you exist solely on a water diet and go on a water fast, but if you are going on a water fast, distilled water actually would be a good idea to decalcify your pineal gland. All these costs for water are going to have different exact figures where you're at, but I just wanted to let you know where I'm at. Those are some numbers that you could write down. So an acre of farmland that I have, I'm watering, and I use about 100 liters a day of fluid. I offset my water costs, which are basically 50 euros a month. Not a lot. And that's water delivered to my farm, and I fill up these jugs. I could offset, for example, it doesn't always go according to plan. My delivery guy's truck just broke down, so this whole jug that's filled behind me is filled from a Fanta. So you would want to find, where are your Fantas, where are your fountains, where are your springs, where are your rivers? Can you run water from a river through your pump? Do you have a good filtration system on? Do you need a filtration system? Water could technically be free if you have water running through your backyard. Then just fill up a jug like this, run an electric pump to it, get off-grid electricity like we're going to talk about in part 4. We're going to talk about electricity, so stay tuned for part 4. It'll just be electricity. But yeah, as far as water goes, the costs of water in my case, as I've told you, I'm basically looking at 50 euros a month just for water. And then I would say drinking water would be included in our grocery bill, which I've already said to you guys is roughly about 1,000 euros a month, because we're still buying groceries. I want my creamer. I love my coffee. You know, we're not growing everything right away here. I might plant coffee beans. Might do that. Like make a coffee tree. But until then, the closer you can get to reducing your water costs to zero, like for instance, when I gather water from the local rivers or a Fanta, that's free. I just have to go get it. If I had my ideal truck here, which I don't have in the 3 dimensions yet, third dimension, I want to have a helix, and I want to put one of these empty on the back, go down to the river and fill it up with a pump, and then once it's filled, bring it back here and drain it out through a tube into one of these. And I do that 3 or 4 times, and I would have enough water for the month. And you know, right now I'm sitting on so much water because it's the rainy season, and even during the dry season, or the drought season as the locals called it here, I was never concerned for water. We found all the local rivers. We you know, looked at maps where all the rivers are, where are all the Fantas, and then we just kind of kept a running rotating list of where everything was, where we could get water, what was working, what had dried up. And these are things that you need to keep in mind, because water is a necessity of life, as you know, you probably know. So yeah, the average human, just keep in mind, it's good to have these rough figures in mind. Say the average human will go through 40 liters of water a day, not even including a farm. My acre, I take about 100 liters of water a day, or fluid as I call it, because it's Graywater and Rainwater right now. And when the Graywater runs out, or when the rainwater runs out, then I'll be to borehole water and Graywater or river water. So there's so many different sources of water. My ideal for watering plants, for example, would be rainwater. I like showering in rainwater too. We've done that. Next up would be river water or borehole water after that, which would be number 3. Well water, it would be number 3 as well. So well water or borehole water would be number 3. And then you can get after that unchlorinated, untreated Fanta water, if you can find it, which would be from probably a well again, or spring water, if you can find a spring. Then you would get into distilled water, number 4, number 5, distilled water, depending on what you're using it for. So there's so many different sources of water. You can desalinate the ocean when all else fails. For us, we're in our first year. We have not come anywhere close to running out of water, even, you know, having moved here in what the locals describe as a drought. We're in the rainy season. I've got so much rainwater. There's an entire week where, you know, I didn't have to water anything. So, but location matters. As I've said in part 1 and part 2, you know, location matters. So keep in mind all these things when you're considering living off grid. Even having a pond or something that you could access. I know a guy who has a pond and fills it with his, you know, his gray water. When you're peeing and whatnot, it goes into the pond. It gives you a source, you know, basically. If all else fails, you have a pond. So just keep that in mind. Reservoirs, Here, the tanks, just to buy the plastic tanks alone, will cost you about maybe 100 euros. If you want to get a 3,000 liter tank, which we've looked into, a big inflated plastic piece of like tank that you could submerge, it would cost basically 1,000 euros. If I'm gonna get it dug into the ground, I have to buy a little bit higher grade quality. I have to physically do the work or rent some equipment to dig the hole and prepare the site, and then they would deliver it, some maybe 1,100 euros. So that would be just for the tank itself, and then you fill it with whatever you want to fill it with. My suggestion to you would be if you could harvest rainwater to fill up the biggest tank you can with rainwater, and then worry about pumping it out later. You know, the first point is to get the water. In a pinch, you're not going to worry about pumping, trust me. In a pinch, if you're running out of water, then you'll be getting buckets and whatever you can, you know, if you're actually thirsty. Atmospheric water generators are a high-tech thing that I haven't had my hands on yet, other than condensation units. I feel like it's more energy input than it would be worthwhile. More energy input than on the output side, but if you want to look into atmospheric water generators and try them, go ahead. But until then, I would say try to rely on rain, graywater, and well water, a borehole water, or if you want to get kind of kooky, then pick yourself up a water distiller. You could at least distill your drinking water and reduce your plastic use. Don't buy the drinking water from the store anymore. Distill 4 liters a day, and then you would have your drinking water. If electricity isn't that big of an issue for you, then that would be recommended. So we'll see you on the next one. This has been number 3, water. Part 4, we'll talk about electricity and the costs of electricity living off grid. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Are you tired of reincarnating? Me too. Now show the world that you don't want to reincarnate with this Do Not Reincarnate t-shirt.